Welcome back, YouTube family. So friends, the story that we are going to explain today is called 12 Years of Slave. You must have heard a lot of stories about freedom. But after watching this story, you will know the real meaning of freedom. This is when people used to go to the market to buy vegetables instead of vegetables, so that they could make them their slaves and get them to work for years. In which you will find old, young, women, children, all kinds of people. But one of them is Solomon Ezeofer. He is black, but his heart is pure. He is not a slave like others. He lives happily with his family. Solomon is a talented musician. Now one day he is going to work as usual, and then he meets a friend who makes him meet two white people whose names were Brown and Hamilton. Both professions are magicians. They tell Solomon that we want to give you a job because you play the violin very well. You have to work in our show, and you will get $250 for the day of our performance. In that time, the money was too much, so Solomon accepted their offer. After a few days, we see them in Washington where they used to work. Now they are eating in a restaurant where Solomon drinks a lot. But when his eyes open, he finds himself in a dark room with chains. Here begins another story of his life. He gets very upset when he sees how he came here. Gradually he starts remembering everything from last night. He realizes that those people had betrayed him and he was sold. After a while, two people come to the room, who Solomon says that I am not a slave, I am free. But where were they going to hear him? They start beating him for no reason. Now Solomon screams in pain, but it is common in this dark house. Here, someone's scream is heard every moment. And it is ignored. There are some other people who were brought there, like Solomon. There is a lady who has two children. Now one night, they were being taken to another place. Solomon tells his friends that the crew here is very less. If we want, we can kill them and run away from here, and then we will be free. They agree and start waiting for the white man. After a while, a man comes there who forcefully takes the black lady with him. But then a black man tries to stop him from behind, but without thinking, he kills the white man with a knife. And here we know that the slaves are not worth anything. They are kept like animals. The next day, Solomon's body flows into the water. And he also realized that if he raised his voice even a little bit, then he would also be floating in the water the next day. After a while, all the slaves reach a place where the slaves own. Solomon looks around, he sees helplessness everywhere. The slaves look like they are begging for their lives. Women, old children, everyone has their own personal property. Some slaves were also the ones who had wounds on their bodies, and when they saw them, any soul would tremble. After this, Solomon and his companions are seated in a place, and everyone's name is taken. Whoever's name comes, he stands up from his place. And after a while, the man who takes the name calls the plate name, but no one stands there. He comes to Solomon and tells him why you are not standing. He says that my name is not plate. Now he says something else in front of him. That's when the man slaps him hard, which made Solomon silent and completely deaf. He didn't understand what had happened to him. He was even more afraid of what was going to happen to him in the future. We see that all the slaves are put in a place without clothes where the rich people come to buy them. In today's world, as we go to buy clothes in the beginning, the same way people have come here to buy people. Now here is the lady who has two kids. Now that lady and Solomon are bought by a man for $10,000. The man who bought it is being played by Benedict Cumberbatch, whom you must have seen in the Doctor Strange movie. Well, that woman tells that man that she has two kids, you should buy them too, so that the three of us can live together. Now that rich man agrees and wants to buy her too, but the man who was selling her refuses to do so, because he wanted to use both the small children in every way possible. Here the lady puts a garland on him and asks him to let his children go with him. He was ready to serve his children all his life, but there was no one to listen to him. His children are separated from him in front of his eyes. He cries and screams, but this is the time when the price of a person is measured only by money. Now the man he has bought here is called Ford, is a very good person. He does not oppress his slaves after this. Solomon and the woman go to the man's house, where her wife treats him very well. She was very upset that her children were separated from her. Now here Solomon got a new name, Plate. Now this was his new identity. Now there were other people who were slaves. They tell Solomon that if you love your life, then don't tell anyone here that you know how to read and write. Otherwise, these people will kill you. Actually, the job of these people is to cut down trees and collect wood. But it was not easy for Solomon. He was an educated man. He had never done such a thing in his life. He was a musician, but the situation here is different. He has to obey everything his master says and make him happy. Now one day, Solomon tells Ford, who is his master, that if we take wood with the help of water, then your money and time will be saved. The supervisor here did not like Solomon, he was jealous. He said that nothing like this can happen, the water is very deep and the wood will sink. But Solomon said that no, it can be possible, I can do it and show it. So Master Ford says that okay, if you can do this, make a team and show me. After a while, Solomon shows the master crossing the river. After seeing this, everyone is very happy. Ford is also very happy with him and gives him as a violin gift. Because he was a very good person. He did not treat slaves like slaves. But the supervisor is not happy to see all this. He feels that Solomon will go ahead of him. There we see the lady who was still crying for her children. And when he sees that, Solomon gets angry and says that how long will you keep crying like this? Find a better way to get out of here, which you can meet your children with. Next, we see that Solomon is given a wooden house, which is being made very well, but then the supervisor comes there, who starts to make mistakes in the house, and Solomon says that you may have made a mistake in seeing this, I have done my job. While hearing this, the supervisor gets very angry and tells him that you are a dog and kicks him. Solomon was shocked to see this, but he doesn't say anything and stands there quietly. Now the next day that supervisor comes to him again and says again that you are doing this wrong thing. Solomon says in anger to him that you are wrong, not me. This makes that man very angry and raises his hand on Solomon. Now this time, Solomon doesn't sit still. He starts hitting him with the belt, but in the meantime another supervisor comes who takes the other supervisor and says to Solomon that if you want to save your life, then stay here. After a while, they come here with another man. Now he was going to be punished for something that he never did. They hang a rope on a tree and if they leave the rope, he will suffocate. They are going to leave the rope until another man comes who says to him while showing the gun that he is my slave. Now the three of them go from there, but before going, the supervisor tells Solomon that I will kill you. After he goes, Solomon's problems increase even more. He was just standing there with his toe ring. If he removed it, he would be killed. He has a lot of people working with him, but they blind him so that nothing happens to Solomon. As if all this is normal for him. After a while, Master Ford comes there and takes him to his house. They tell him that the supervisor won't leave him, so I have sent you to another master to save your life. His name is Hdmoviz. Solomon tells him that I am a free man and you know this, please get me out of here and send me to my family. But the master says that I can't do this because I have a lot of debt. I have no other option but to save your life. Now Solomon was fed up with his life, he just wanted to send him to the one, he let him go home. Now the scene shifts and we see him with the new master, Hdmoviz. Here, Edwin was completely opposite to the Master Ford. He used to beat the slaves and torture them. Now, at this place, slaves are given the task of removing the soul. There is a girl named Patsy among them, who was quite young at the age. But she used to remove the soul twice from other slaves here. Now, every evening after work, the account is taken. If someone removed less than 100 kilograms of soul, he would be shot dead. But Patsy was never killed because she did her job very well. But Edwin is a very ruthless man and his evil eye was on Patsy. One day all the slaves were sleeping after completing their work, but their master is not able to rest. He tells his men to come to his house. Now all the slaves come to him half asleep. And when they come here, they know that their master has to dance because he wanted entertainment. So by watching this scene, you can understand the mentality of the people of that time. Now all the slaves start dancing there and in the meantime, the master's wife comes there, who throws water on the face of the Patsy from a glass jug. She falls there because of the pain. She did this because she knew that her husband had a bad eye on her, and she tells her husband to sell her somewhere else. But he says that I will not sell her anywhere because this work does very well. Now one day, she tells master's wife to bring some stuff from Solomon, which he takes and goes. And on the way, he decides that he will run away today. Now it's enough. And he does the same. But on the way he sees some white people who were hanging two slaves. They ask him, "Who are you slaves?" And Solomon does not answer in fear. After which he sees a locket in his neck, on which his master's name was written. This is the run where the dogs were not hanged in the neck, but the human's neck was hanged, in which the names of their masters were written. Now they leave the white man behind by looking at this band. As Solomon goes, he sees in the eyes of the slaves who were screaming and saying that we were running like you, so that his family can meet his small children. But today we are suffering his punishment. In action, friends, these white people who are roaming in the jungle. The slaves who tried to escape from here, they would catch them and hang them on the hanging. And the same was happening here with some people. Now after seeing this scene, he goes straight to the market instead of running and gives the stuff to the master's wife. And in this way, the years pass and every night there is cruelty with the Patsy. He was also watching all this in front of everyone, but he couldn't do anything. One night, Patsy comes to him and says to him by giving him a ring that I stole this from the master's house. You keep it, but get me done with one thing. He asks what work. Patsy says to take me to the field and kill me. I don't want to live anymore. And after hearing this, Solomon's soul shivers. So Patsy says that it's better than this miserable life that I want to die. I have no reason to live. I am dying little by little every day. And you will have to free me. But Solomon refuses to do this, and Patsy leaves from there. So no matter how poor or rich anyone is, God is one of all. He does not differentiate between his people, whether they are white or black. And today God had heard about Patsy. We see that the ruin of the master is destroyed and the master is in great loss. Seeing this, he gives all his slaves to a judge on rent. Freedom is not right, but for these slaves a little pain was found. And the job of the judge is to cultivate sugarcane, and this is also called playing the violin at a wedding, which he plays very well. Now after a few days, these people come back to their old master. Because the ruin of the master has started again. All these people were very happy when they were there, but as soon as they came, they started to be cruel. Again, the same process begins, which will take out the least amount of soul. He is given 100 coins, and in this list, Solomon is the first. He used to get more coins. Now one day a white man comes to work with them, who was not a slave of anyone, but he came to work for money. He used to live with all the slaves and slowly, friendship begins between him and the people. Solomon says to him that you will do a job for me. So he says, what is the work? So he says that I will write you a letter and give it to you. You will post it. I will give you some money in return. So that white man takes the money and agrees. Now Solomon says that I will give you the letter after 2 days. But that white man betrays Solomon and tells the master all the things. That your slave wants to run away from here. Knowing this, his master comes who was in a drunken state. He says that I have heard that there is an educated slave here. So he says, no master, there is no one here. After this, he asks him, I have heard that you are writing a letter with which you have given the post to that white slave. Solomon refuses and lies that the master, the white slave, wants to be the supervisor here. That's why he is accusing us of lying. His master agrees and Solomon's life is saved. Now after he leaves, he burns that letter and here he was seeing his hopes burning in front of him. This letter was his last hope to tell his family that he is still alive. But now that hope is over. He will die one day while doing this work and no one will know. Now one day we see that Patsy goes somewhere without telling the owner. His owner finds him everywhere but comes back after a while. Seeing this, his owner gets very angry and goes crazy. He kills him, but Solomon comes in between to save him. But he still doesn't stop. Then Patsy says that I went to get the shower. I could smell the smell of my body, I couldn't find any soup here, but his owner was losing his hope. After some time, a white man named Beos comes there. He came here to work for some money. The owner comes to him and offers him a drink. But he refuses, saying that you can only see my sweat. The slave is working for you for years. Give him this drink. But the owner says that he is my slave. He is worse than an animal. This is my property, I can do whatever I want with him. But you are a white man and you can be my friend. A far working Solomon is listening to all these things. He understands that this human is good for the heart. Now here friends. Brad Pitt has played the role of Bass, who is a very good actor. Now one day Bass comes to him and says to him that maybe you want to say something to me. Say whatever you want to say in your heart. I am not like other people. Solomon also believes that, after which he keeps his whole life in front of him after listening to this. He also understands that to what extent he can fall in love with a person. Bass says that if you post this letter, your life will change and you can get freedom. Then I am ready to do this. But remember that no one should know this. Now a few days pass and Bass leaves work and goes home. Now one day, Solomon was working with his people every time, and then 2 men came from Tanga. One of them is a policeman and he comes and asks everyone that is there a man named Platt here. So Solomon goes to him and says that yes, my name is Plate. The policeman asks that apart from this, do you have any other name? So he says that yes, my real name is Solomon. And after that, when Solomon looks at that leg, he becomes very happy because the man there recognizes him. And friends, he is the same person whose shop Solomon used to shop with his family. And after that, the policeman asks him some other questions that are related to his family, which he tells the truth, and in the meantime his owner comes and says that he is my slave, leave him. He also tells Solomon that I will give you more money, you stay here. But Solomon runs to his friend Peter and hugs him. After so many years he had seen someone of his own, but then the owner comes there and grabs his neck and tells him to leave him, and Peter tells him that I know that you have brought him here by deceit, and if you don't leave him then I will meet you in court and all your property will be taken away. He says that he is taking Solomon away, and then a voice comes from behind Solomon. He thinks that who is calling me by this name, so he gets down from his leg, and when he turns back, it was Patsy, who hugs him and cries a lot because she was working here for years, because Solomon now knows that he is getting the last time from Patsy, and she also knows that she will never see Solomon again, and maybe his death will happen here now. Solomon's eyes are crying. He wants to free the people around him, but it's not possible, we all know that. Now the scene shifts, and Solomon meets his family 35 years later. Both his children have grown up and they are married. Solomon doesn't believe that his family is standing in front of him. He starts crying seeing them and apologizes that he was trapped in a bad time. His children come to him and everyone hugs him and starts crying, and says that you don't need to apologize, you haven't done anything wrong. And with this emotional ending, this story ends. In this whole world, you will find many bad people who will show you your money, your skin color, your clothing. They will think you are weak. But you will also find some people like Base in whom humanity is still alive. If Base hadn't helped him, then Solomon would still be a slave now. Solomon wrote a book on this story called 12 Years of Slave, and this movie is based on that. He took part in many protests against slavery, but no one knew where Solomon's death was and where he was buried. With this, the slavery law was abolished on June 19, 1865, in America, after which all slaves were freed. You must have got an idea from this story, because when India was not free, how was it treated with us? So the story ends here. How did you like this story? Do comment below and let me know. See you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.